She is celebrated as a Hollywood legend, a Broadway icon, and the unforgettable voice that carried songs into the hearts of millions. Yet behind Julie Andrews' flawless smile was a silence she endured for more than 60 years. A secret so heavy, she guarded it even while the world rose to its feet in applause. At 89 years old, Julie Andrews is finally breaking that silence, revealing the truth about the catastrophic surgical mistake that stole her golden voice forever. The hidden pain behind her marriage and the heartbreak she regrets most deeply. This is not the polished story of Mary Poppins or Maria von Trapp. This is the real Julie Andrews, a woman who endured unimaginable trials, yet still chose grace. Julie Andrews was born Julia Elizabeth Wells on October 1st, 1935, in Walton-on-Thames, England. To the outside world, she seemed like any other wartime child, innocent, wide-eyed, and sheltered in the chaos of World War II. But inside her home, life was fractured. For the first 14 years, Julie clung to the belief that Edward Charles Wells, the kind-hearted schoolteacher she called Dad, was her true father. His gentle presence gave her a fragile illusion of safety. But in 1950, that illusion shattered. Her mother, Barbara, revealed a truth more devastating than bombs falling over London. Julie was not Edward's child at all. She was the product of an affair. In that moment, Julie's identity collapsed. Every childhood embrace felt poisoned by secrecy, every memory redefined as betrayal. She described it later as a fracture in her soul that echoed for the rest of her life. But even before this revelation, her home life was filled with despair. Her parents' marriage had crumbled during the war. Barbara remarried a vaudeville performer named Ted Andrews, and the family lived in a bleak, cold home in post-war London. Poverty was constant, and affection was absent. Barbara, numbed by alcohol, drifted through life. Ted, though he recognized Julie's remarkable gift, became the embodiment of fear in her young world. Julie would later recall that when Ted was drunk, his behavior crossed boundaries no child should ever endure. Twice, incidents occurred that left her locking her bedroom door at night, not for privacy, but for survival. Lying awake, holding her breath at every creak of the floorboards, Julie lived in constant terror that the shadow outside her door might push it open. These were the scars she carried in silence for decades. And yet, in that world of fear, something miraculous endured. Her voice. Clear, piercing, and divine, it became her lifeline. Singing wasn't simply a talent. It was her only escape, her shield, her way to survive when life threatened to erase her. Julie's voice was extraordinary, so crystalline and powerful it seemed impossible for a child so small. The irony was cruel. Ted Andrews, the very man who scarred her childhood, also pushed her toward performance, forcing her onto stages where applause temporarily drowned out her pain. In the late 1940s, while other children played in the streets, Julie was already carrying the weight of survival through music. She studied under Madame Lillian Stiles Allen, a revered soprano she would later call her third mother. Stiles Allen was strict, demanding perfection, but also provided something Julie desperately craved: structure and safety. Julie absorbed every lesson as though her life depended on it. She traveled alone to rehearsals with a sandwich in her pocket because there was no money for food, her eyes fixed on sheet music while her peers lived carefree lives. By 12 years old, she stunned audiences at the London Hippodrome in starlight. Roof. When she sang Je suis Titania, grown men and women wept. It wasn't a child imitating an adult. It was something otherworldly. A wounded child transcending her pain through music. At just 13, she performed at the Royal Command Variety performance before King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, becoming the youngest soloist ever. For most children, this would have been pure joy. For Julie, it was bittersweet. The applause masked her pain, but could never erase it. Every ovation was more than recognition. It was armor. She was not simply building a career. She was building. Survival doc by 19, Julie crossed the Atlantic to America. In 1954, she made her Broadway debut in The Boyfriend. Critics praised her radiant presence and crystalline soprano. She was no longer just a prodigy, she was a star in the making. But the true test came in 1956 with My Fair Lady. Many doubted she could transform into Eliza Doolittle, the Cockney flower girl. Night after night, she silenced every critic. Her performance became legendary, and the show ran for more than 2,700 performances. Julie was the jewel of Broadway. And yet, Hollywood dealt her one of its cruelest blows. When My Fair Lady was adapted for film, the role she had lived and breathed was handed to Audrey Hepburn. Julie was discarded, devastated, and humiliated, but destiny had other plans. Walt Disney himself had seen her on stage and was so captivated that he personally traveled to offer her Mary Poppins. When she hesitated because she had just given birth, Disney delayed production until she recovered. The result? Mary Poppins premiered in 1964 to thunderous acclaim. Julie's performance was magical, blending strength and warmth. When she won the Academy Award for Best Actress, it was poetic justice beating out Audrey Hepburn herself. But she didn't stop there. Just a year later, she took on Maria von Trapp in The Sound of Music. Though filming was grueling bruises, exhaustion, helicopter downdrafts, she never complained. The movie became one of the most beloved films of all time, embedding her in global memory. By the late 1960s, Julie wasn't just a star. She was a symbol of resilience, grace, and joy. Julie's personal life, however, was far from perfect. She married her teenage sweetheart, Tony Walton, in 1959. They shared a daughter, Emma, and for a while seemed to live a fairy tale life. But as Julie's fame skyrocketed, their relationship strained. She was constantly touring and filming, while Tony's career as a set designer moved at a different pace. By 1967, their marriage ended quietly. Julie later confessed, "I felt like I had failed, not just him, not just Emma, but myself." Then came Blake Edwards. They met outside a therapist's office, two broken souls seeking healing. Their connection blossomed into a 41-year marriage filled with both love and hardship. Blake suffered from depression and chronic illness, but Julie became his anchor. Together, they adopted two daughters from Vietnam and built a family. But in 2010, after decades together, Blake passed away. Julie described feeling untethered, like a tree ripped from its roots. She had endured many losses, but this was the cruelest silence of all, the absence of the man who had loved her through every scar. The greatest tragedy of Julie's career came in 1997. While performing Victor Victoria in the mid-1990s, she noticed a hoarseness in her voice. Doctors told her she had benign nodules, nothing life-threatening, nothing serious. Surgery, they promised, would fix it. At 62, she placed her trust in their hands. But when she awoke from surgery, her world collapsed. Instead of her crystalline soprano, only a hoarse rasp emerged. Scar tissue had stiffened her vocal cords. The voice that had carried her from childhood, trauma to Hollywood stardom, was gone forever. She described it as a death inside. She underwent 4 more surgeries, desperate for a cure, but none succeeded. Even speaking became painful. By 2000, feeling betrayed, Julie filed a malpractice lawsuit against Mount Sinai Hospital, alleging she was never fully informed of the risks. The case was settled privately, but no amount of money could restore her gift. The world mourned the loss of her golden voice. But Julie refused to vanish. Julie transformed her grief into purpose. With her daughter, Emma, she co-authored more than 30 children's books imaginative, hopeful stories for a generation she could no longer sing to. Her altered voice found new life in narration and film. She became Queen Lillian in the Shrek franchise, appeared in Despicable Me, and lent her warm tones to documentaries. She turned tragedy into reinvention. Even more moving, she became an advocate for vocal health, funding research to help others. When asked what she missed most, she replied softly, "I don't miss performing. I miss singing. It's the purest expression of who I am." Those words silenced every room. Today, Julie Andrews lives quietly, her estimated net worth around $30 million. Her homes West Lodge in Wimbledon, Chester Square in London, a retreat. In California reflect success, but not indulgence. Friends describe her current home as warm, filled with books, flowers, and family photographs. Her cars, from a restored Bentley to a Lexus, are symbols of different chapters of her life. But her truest treasures are not material. They're memories, love, and legacy. She continues mentoring young artists at Bay Street Theater, co-authoring children's books, and supporting causes like literacy, women's empowerment, and arts. Education. When asked how she wished to be remembered, she said simply, kindness, and maybe making someone's day a little brighter. Julie Andrews' life is not just the story of a star. It is the story of a survivor. From a childhood marked by betrayal and fear, to the cruel loss of her singing voice, to the heartbreak of losing Blake Edwards, Julie has endured tragedies that could have broken anyone. Yet she chose to rise again and again with elegance, dignity, and grace. To the world, she will forever be Mary Poppins and Maria von Trapp. But to those who know her story, she is something far greater, a woman who transforms sorrow into strength, silence into resilience, and tragedy into triumph. Her voice may have been stolen, but her legacy will echo for generations.